Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to the Power Hour radio show. It is 28 June 2011. You know, I hope it's a month that we will forget. I hope it'll all go away. I am thinking it can't be as bad. There cannot be this many things going wrong in this country, and I know you feel the same way. Oh, if I could just go back and listen to a little Barry Manilow and have everything be all right. You know, the feeling of, it's kind of overwhelming, isn't it? Well, we're going to try and look at each one of these issues step by step. And just to make it more interesting as we go along, now there are people like Ed Chiarini who think that some of this stuff is staged. Now, one would think that because that's his job to think that, right? Well, he is the one that is sort of given the job of seeing what's really taking place here. Are we being hoodwinked again? Because now they have such incredible computers that can do such incredible deceptive things. Well, we're kind of depending upon him to look through this and tell us what really is right or wrong. Well, we don't have all the answers. He's going to be joining us in this hour also because he's got some news. And I'll tell you, I don't even want to see it. Every time I get into my computer in the morning, it explodes with all the new things that he has found overnight. And it's pretty scary. I'm going to let him tell you this time, because I'm not even going to try and narrate what I think is going on, because I don't know. There's too much that appears to be fraudulent news. That means it's news they don't want us to lose. It's news they want to create. And it's news they create for our consumption. I am a believer now that much of what we see is created. Do I know, for instance, did that TSA event happen yesterday with a 95-year-old lady? I don't know. We didn't see any footage of her being groped, did we? Is that incendiary? What about Greece? Is that really exploding right now? Is that old file film? Representative Giffords is going to appear in public in an awards ceremony in Houston. Is that real? I don't know. We'll be back after this 3-minute break. This is Joyce Riley and the Power Hour. All right, Scott, you said that there was a helicopter crash, which we've seen the news report, and there was an FAA report of a helicopter crash at the plant area. You want to tell us about that quickly?
Concerned whether that helicopter really crashed or not, and I have no means of judging whether that did occur. The FAA report that I had sent you was actually a post from a blogger, so that's not necessarily an official source. But one of your listeners has emailed us saying that there's indications to him that the photo is not authentic and that it's been photoshopped, as they say. Okay,
now let me bring on that person right now, Ed Chiarini, who has been our graphics expert on computers and computer-generated stuff. He's got a lot to tell us. But before I let you go, Scott, I want him to address that also, because Ed, you were concerned about the photo of this downed helicopter. I want to welcome you to the Power Hour, and I know that you didn't plan on talking about this, but since you've made this statement, I'd like for you to come on and tell us why and what this may mean. Welcome to the Power Hour this morning, Ed.
Oh, thank you for having me. Hey, hi, Scott. It's nice to finally talk to you. The report that you sent me, well, just common sense tells me this. When a helicopter crashes and it's on its side like that, there's going to be injuries. Well, that report says there's no injuries. So right there, it throws flags. Second, when you look at the helicopter, the rotor is still attached to the top of it. Now, I don't know of any helicopter that crashes and lands on its side that rotor is going to stay involved like that. So what I did from that point, I took that image that you gave me and I put it in Photoshop, and I did a thing where it's basically called, you're pushing the curves of it and you're adjusting the levels. And if the image is a flat image where there's no layers or superimposed images on top of it and then flattened in Photoshop, the image will have an overall one solid change of tone. But what happens when you put a layer and you try to mask it and you try to hide the edges, when you push those curves, it pops out like it just stands out, and you can see exactly where the mask is. And that's what happened immediately when I did that.
All right, then let's talk about what this means. Now, Scott, I know you're not into this part of it. This is the expertise that Ed has. And I just want you to say, Ed, what are your thoughts now at this point that this might mean? If that helicopter crash is not a real one, and we'll put the picture up at the Power Hour so you can all decide for yourself, but if that is a generated picture, why would they want to generate a picture of an airplane crashing?
Well, let's put it in the same context as the Gabrielle Giffords thing that we'll talk about a little bit. Is if they're having an event where they need to stage something for a training episode, they need to put that out in the media so people react to it. So the first responders think that it's actually happening. So they come to the scene ready to work on an injured pilot or whatnot. So if the event is real, then there's no need to fake anything. So that's where we go back to the Giffords thing. If an event is real, then we don't need to fake.
Well, I don't get what is going on here, because it seems like having this much of a trauma chaos situation and possibly doing an X-plan or another drill superimposed upon this is just about as crazy as it gets. Now, are they planning, do you think, for this thing to go awry and to get even worse?
That would be speculation, but think about it this way. Say this was an X-plan, and right now everybody's worked up, and we're thinking the worst, and we're getting prepared for what we should, in case something like this happened. But if they know that nothing's going to happen, then basically at the end of the day, they go, "Oops, see, we told you," and nobody's hurt, and nothing happened. So that's why they're sitting back, in my opinion, and that's why you're not seeing the news media get really involved, because they've been told not to spoil their X-plan so they can have everything look like a real event. But I just have a hard time when they fake stuff and they put stuff out to the media like that. It just really rings true to what we've been seeing all along with the X-plans, and there was talk about having one basically around this time.
Okay, let me go back to Scott for a second here. Scott, at this point in time, now there's even, and I appreciate your take on this, if it is Photoshopped, if that helicopter crash is Photoshopped, then we got a problem here, because then the whole thing, we begin to wonder what's going on. Wouldn't you agree with that, Scott?
Oh, yeah.
Okay. Now, let me ask you this. There's information circulating now that they're concerned about the core of this nuclear power plant. Do you see any reason to be concerned at this point?
No, I don't, but I think I can explain that document that you might be referring to. There's a document generated from the Nuclear Regulatory Commission saying that there would be a 100% chance of core damage if the flood exceeded a certain point. And is that the document you might be referring to?
Yes.
Okay, that was accurate as of a year ago, and that was the basis upon which the NRC ordered changes made at Fort Calhoun. And Fort Calhoun supposedly made those changes. Now, in order for that document to be accurate now, two things would have to be different. One is the reactor would have to be operating, which it's not.
Okay.
And two, those alleged changes that they've made would not have happened. But, how much can we trust the changes that they've made when they were plugging holes just a week ago when we talked? Or when the aquifer broke, it also, the water penetrated the concrete barrier around the electrical system, so they found out they had leaks there.
Well, at this point in time, where do you see the status of the plant? Just give us, I'm going to have to let you go, and I apologize, because we'll have you back on. I know you've been on Coast to Coast giving them updates nightly, but where do you see this mess right now at Fort Calhoun and the upstream waters?
Well, I continue to not be very worried. I am concerned, but I still think that there will be time to react to the most severe, or not the most severe, but the most likely event to occur, which would be the loss of electricity and therefore the spent fuel pools dropping to the point where the fuel is exposed, and then that could catch on fire and disperse radiation. But they would have time to react to that by pumping water into the spent fuel pool. There's another rumor that maybe we can help people judge for themselves whether to worry about or not, and that's the cask. There's dry casks that are on a tarmac some distance from the plant. You can see that in the photos there, and we've talked about that before. That's on a more elevated piece of ground, and they do have a berm around that at the present time. But the casks themselves are sealed, and they're not halfway underwater, as some of the reports were saying, and there's, at this point, no way for even the flooding river to penetrate those casks. Okay. But there is one special scenario where the water could raise only to a certain height and no further and block the lower vent and then that would suffocate the ability to cool those spent fuel casks, and then possibly a problem could develop. But that would have to be, that can happen. That would have to be if all things work against it at the exact right amount.
Okay. Well, thank you very much, Scott, for joining us today. We'll try to get all this information at the Power Hour News section and also in the email blast, along with the picture of the helicopter, which Ed says is photoshopped. And we'll find out what happens as a result of this. If there is some type of drill going on here, it doesn't make any sense to me at all, but then none of this makes any sense. Scott Portsline, thank you for joining us, and do call me anytime you got an update for us, okay?
Okay, you're welcome. Thank you.
You have a blessed day. Thank you so much. Now we're going to move back to Ed Chiarini, because this guy is up all night doing all this stuff, and then he comes here with all this information, and we just don't have enough time. But what would you, if you could pick anything to bring to the attention of the people now that Giffords is going to be going out in public today and showing everybody how well she is, and how healed she is, what would you like to deal with, Ed?
I would like to ask her where her stepchildren are when it comes to during this whole healing phase, and where Kelly's children are, too.
Now, what do you mean by this? You have to explain this to the listeners.
Well, the other day, and I have to thank some of the fans out there that have been following this, and, you know, they helped me out last night big time. They totally chipped in, and everybody was doing their work and researching and helping me out, so I wanted to say thank you to them. Well, I came across a video that was from ABC, and it was a video that was released shortly after the actual event, and I remember watching it but not paying too much attention to Kelly, because I just really, every time I see him, he's just talking about...
You're talking about her husband, you know,
yes.
Astronaut Kelly.
Yes, and I watched this video, and I caught something at the end when it came to the funeral that he said he attended, with the Green funeral. And I sent it out to a few people to verify what I saw, and somebody sent it back to me and said, did you see this in the beginning? And I said, no. And it happened to be where Kelly was asked a question, and he said, well, you know, Gabrielle has stepchildren, and I have children, too. And that was something I had never heard of.
That's right.
So all of a sudden, they showed a picture of them, and the one that's standing to Gabrielle's right-hand side looks an awful lot, excuse me, an awful lot like her aide, and we can get into that in a little bit.
Really? Okay.
Yes.
So now we have a new level of interest in this thing. Now, what he is talking about is that the Gabrielle Giffords shooting, for those of you who are new to the Power Hour and wondering and scratching your head what we're talking about here, there seems to have been some type of a drill going on at the very same time. I'm convinced now there is. Now, how much and how far this is going into the area of, I don't know, bizarreness, I don't know. But I do know that when you sent me the picture of her stepchildren and whatever, you found out then that there's a relationship to people that worked with her?
Correct. Her aide that's standing alongside of her, that is named Sarah Hummel-Racia, and she was actually at the event, she says, taking pictures of the event when the shooting took place. And this person looks an awful lot like her stepdaughter.
Whoa. So now, where can people go to get this?
The same URL that we did last time. It's the at Wellaware1, that's the number 1.com / TPH / let me see, what is it? TPH / exclusive.htm.
Okay, we'll get that up on the website then. I want everybody to link through to that. Go to that at the Power Hour and see what we're talking about with all these bizarre pictures of people that seem to have been involved with this shooting. Not victims of it, but involved with the shooting. All right, where do we go from here? Now, you're saying that you have been able to determine that these, I mean, I've never heard them ever mention that she had any stepchildren. Does that mean that she was married before?
I believe so, yes.
And does that mean that the story's changing? I mean, I don't understand it.
Well, the problem that we have is the fact that her aide, who is this, I believe is her stepdaughter, was there at the event, and she witnessed the event. And now all of a sudden, you know, it's your stepdaughter is there at the event and witnessed you getting shot, and all of a sudden, you're at work the next day in the office just doing your normal thing. It just doesn't make sense. So it throws a bunch of flags right there.
Yeah, it does not make any sense. All right, let's go on to the next one.
Well, there's one thing that I wanted to tell your the viewers. There's some information that I found, and if you go to that page I just told you, there's a close to the middle of the page, there is one of the slicks that I made that has a photograph of basically what they're called as controllers. And in the X plan, you'll see the definition of the people that take place, that partake in this event. And there's controllers, there's actors, there's evaluators. And we've always noticed these people walking around with clipboards. Well, if you look at the X plan, you'll see that they are called evaluators. And they actually are documenting the performance against the established emergency plans, and that's a Homeland Security document that they're carrying around on that clipboard. But we also see people that are called controllers, and then this is the first time I've ever seen this image available online. I don't know, it just all of a sudden popped up, but it shows an actor laying on the ground, two emergency EMS workers with their gloves on like you normally would have. And then there's a third person standing there alongside of them, hunched down, and he's reading off of little cards in his hand, and he doesn't have any gloves on. This person is a controller. This is a person that goes to he stands by one of the actors, and when the EMS person comes over, he explains to them exactly what the situation is, and that's where the EMS worker then takes charge and does what he's supposed to do with his policies and procedures, and he gets evaluated on it. So right there we see that there's 100% proof of that is an X plan right in front of us.
Now, when you sent that picture to me, the one thing I noticed, there is no blood on anyone. That is like the cleanest disaster site that's ever happened in this world.
That's right.
There's not even any fake blood on anyone.
Correct. And the fact that he's not wearing any gloves, it just shows that the two are wearing gloves, he's not wearing gloves, and he's reading off the cards. I mean, it is absolutely 100% an X plan.
This is incredible. Okay. All right. Now what?
And then, well, we also see the image right above him. We see Mary Brown was a person that got shot, she says, 3 times in the arms and the back, and while she was protecting her daughter, Emma McMahon. Well, Tom McMahon, her husband, he was about 10 feet away, and after the event took place, Emma ran into the store and called 911, but forgot to tell 911 that her mother was shot. A little suspicious there. So anyway, we look at this picture above the EMS workers, and it's a bunch of people standing inside the crime scene tape next to the fire truck, and they're just standing around. There's somebody that has some soda cans in their hand and some chips on the ground. So they're standing there just, spending some time. If you look at the tall gentleman, that is Tom McMahon. That is Mary Brown's husband. So if your wife just got shot and was taken to the hospital, don't you think you'd go with her instead of just hanging around and standing and just enjoying your lunch?
Watching the site, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Exactly. So, again, we see another confirmation of that this was an X plan. So I wanted to get that out to the new listeners so they can actually, just cut through the whole thing and go, okay, this is definitely an X plan, or this is definitely a drill, and so they can start from there and then learn.
If listeners are confused, that's okay. I am too, because there's so much information here. There's so much about this scene that doesn't make any sense now, and that you spent now months on this. You're starting to get it. You're starting to see it, and much better than all of us. And it really takes some time to look at it. Again, you go to Wellaware1, no www, Wellaware1, the number 1, /TPH.
.com. Put .com in there.
I'm sorry.
Yep.
I'm sorry.
That's right.
Wellaware1. I'll let you give it.
Wellaware1.com /TPH /exclusive.htm.
Okay. I was just looking at the monitor here when I was doing that, and I was seeing that the berm has just sort of like, it's back again. That air dam is all back again. Everything is fine, they said. I don't believe it. We'll be back after this 3-minute break with more of Ed Chiarini. Stay tuned to the Power Hour. We'll be back. Welcome back to Power Hour. Thank you for joining us. Thank you for wanting to know the truth, the ugly truth sometimes that we didn't ever think we would see. Who knows? Now we got all the other crimes for Ed to go back and look at. It's incredible, listeners. All right, we're going to talk. I want to talk quickly. Now, Dr. Cass Ingram will be joining us in this next hour at 5 after, so he will be joining us. Then Ingrid Neiman will be joining us the hour after that to talk about cancer salves, and radiation protection. Not that anybody would need it, but we want to talk about those two issues. Then it's planned that we have a doctor joining us that I can't identify who is going to talk about the use of black salve. We have to be very careful because these people put their lives on the line when they talk about this. But talking about lives on the line, your life has changed a little bit since you started doing this, hasn't it, Ed?
Quite a bit. Quite a bit.
Let's talk about the latest sort of veiled threats that you're getting. I don't want to identify where it's coming from or whatever. I want people to know that you, Ed, are receiving some threats.
Correct, and it's actually the people that are doing it are in fear that what I'm going to say next about an individual that's involved in this, and it happened to be one of their family members. But and the wording that they used was pretty particular. They said a mayhem fest, and those words were what Loeffner was accused of saying inside of his class, or writing on the paper in his one math class, a mayhem fest. So, the threats, I don't really mind, but they're going to be handed over to the authorities, and they'll deal with them however they see fit.
Well, I think that it's getting serious, and we know it's getting down to the line because you have found too much information. You have been able to dissect this whole thing in a way that nobody ever considered that anyone would do, mainly because it is so difficult. Because what it has taken you months to do, to go through layer after layer of this onion to come up with this information, I'm sure they thought nobody's going to spend the time on this.
Well, absolutely. And I wouldn't have found any of this if it weren't for one of the individuals that posted a document that I happened to be searching for a name of one of the people that I knew was involved, a witness, and that was Stephen Katz. Well, Stephen Katz's name appears on this document that one of the individuals that owns the Radiant Helix group that's involved in this, he posted this document out there. So Google actually did a hit on it, and when I pulled that document up, it listed out the rest of the owners of the company. And from there, it went on where I found the common link between them. But if it weren't for that one document, I would have not found any of this.
Well, people have been leaking information to you, and like you said, you've got your fans, your team now that's working with you on this, and it's more than just Ed knowing this information, which that's good. That's always good. Now we need to move into a very sensitive area, listeners, and I don't know that I want to do this, but I am at least going to approach the subject, and that is of the deceased, unfortunately, Judge Roll. Now, the very fact that they don't even call it the Judge Roll murder, they call it the Giffords shooting, makes me wonder. But you've got some pictures of someone who resembles very closely Judge Roll.
Well, on that page, you can download these images, and I want to be very specific about this. I don't want to speculate at all. There's an image that says it's John Roll when it was put on by ABC, and it has an image of a young John Roll. If we look on his cheek by his mouth, there is a lump. It's a very obvious lump where it looks like it's a cyst. Well, if he's a young John Roll with a cyst on his face, I'm sure he's going to have that cyst removed, and it's going to leave a scar. So we see that scar on individuals that are told to us to be Judge Roll, and some of these images, of course, are airbrushed for, just a normal, not anything suspect. They just blemish removal, but we can still see the scar. It's right in the same place that we can see it on where the lump is. Now, there's another individual that I've come across, and it happens to be in the same PEMA awards booklet that all the rest of them keep on popping up in, and this individual.
And wait a minute, you're talking about the Sheriff's Department PEMA
Correct.
Awards booklet. Okay.
Yes, and this individual had the same facial features, so I saw this and it piqued my interest. So I did an ear evaluation where I put the ears, overlaid them, and the ears matched perfectly. And at that point, I looked at the scar, and there you have it.
All right, when we come back from this break, we're going to continue with this amazing scenario, ladies and gentlemen. Got to go to the website, Wellaware1.com/TPH/exclusive.htm. Let's take a couple of phone calls. What do you think? Welcome back to Power Hour, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for joining us. Now that this has reached a new level of threats, we are going to reach a new level also. And we are moving in another direction, and it's time that the world know about this other than the Power Hour listeners. Now, if you go to Wellaware1.com/TPH/exclusive.htm, or I think Wanda's got it at the website now, you're going to see Phyllis Phyllis Schneck, who was wounded in the whatever happened that day, but it appears that he's found her picture also. Then you've got the Judge Roll pictures, you've got the stepchildren pictures, and it is looking as though, I don't know, you've done an amazing job here, just an amazing job. And then, of course, all the other ones. Now, I'd like to hear from a couple of you. 800-259-9231, 800-259-9231. I want to hear if you are agreeing with this, disagreeing, you think it's not substantiated, you think we're messing around in the wrong nest. Let us know. 800-259-9231. You are of the opinion. Now, I really don't know that I want to go here too much, but you're of the opinion that there's some things that are wrong with the Casey Anthony trial, are you not?
Absolutely, yes. The same individuals that we see involved in a lot of news events are coming out of the same books. There's three books, the 2008, 2009, and 2010 awards booklet from the Pima County Sheriff's Office. And it seems like if you do well that year and you get your awards, you get a medal, well, you also seem to get a part in a news event. And you can page through these booklets and pick the people out, and they'll be grouped together as one event. And we see that with the Casey Anthony trial.
You are doubting some of the other stories in the news, and we haven't gotten to those yet, but some of their major stories, not just the Holly Bobo kidnapping, which they have resurrected that issue now, and they're attempting to, they still have the $85,000, so I guess you have not been able to get that reward yet. Let me go to Sherry in Missouri. Sherry in Missouri, you're on the air. Go ahead, please.
Good morning. What I was curious about was the congresswoman went to see Gabby in the hospital. And if it was a fake defense, then doesn't that imply that the Congress...
Boy, you've got a really bad VoIP line. You've got a really bad VoIP line. I'm sorry, Sherry. All right, let's address the congresswoman going to see another congressperson going to see the congresswoman. Your response, Ed? Where did Ed go?
Hello.
Oh, go ahead, Ed. Your response...
Not only that, we have the president meeting with one of the people that's involved in this also, who has a look-alike. And if you know anything about meeting the president, you have to give your information to the Secret Service ahead of time so they can do a background check. So he knows that who this person is, and this person happens to be related to a very famous person involved in the government. But yes, anybody that says they're using this, they've met Gabby or they've seen her and she's doing well, you know, it really throws a lot of question into their integrity if this proves out to be what I say.
That's what okay, there's your answer, Sherry. Let's go to Ed in New York. Ed in New York, you're on the air. Go ahead, please. Or Kevin in New York, I'm sorry. Kevin, go ahead, please.
Yes. Hi, good morning, Joyce, and to your guest. Let's say that everything that your guest Ed is saying is true, and I looked at for myself, and there's no really one way to confirm it 100%.
Right.
It's just a long line of all the lies the government has told us, but we do nothing about it anyway. So
okay, the question is, where do we go from here? What do we do? What would you do if you had all this information, Kevin?
But, Joyce, we have information about 9/11. We have information about the TSA, what they're doing, groping, and yet still the people do nothing.
But hang on.
Okay,
hang
go
on.
ahead.
Let me interrupt you real quick on this one, because this one's different than the 9/11 or, say, the JFK assassination. With those events, we're looking in the past. We're trying to dig up and piece things together as in the past of what we have. Now, this situation that we have here, it's actually happening right now in front of us, where we can actually step in and we can stop them from what they're doing.
All right, thank you very much, Ed. Thank you for joining us today. We're going to have another program with Ed on Thursday. You're going to talk about your hydrogen cell, correct?
Correct. Yep.
Okay, Thursday morning, Ed will be back on for an hour, ladies and gentlemen. I'm sure some of this will come up. Thank you, Ed, for joining us today on the Power Hour. It is a pleasure to have you.
Great. Thank you, Joyce.
All right, we will talk to you soon. Keep working. Oh, my goodness. We'll be back 3 minutes. Welcome back to Power Hour. Thank you for joining us. Thank you for caring about your world. And thank you for reaching out. And that's what we do here. And why? Because they lied to us too many times. They got away with it too many times. And because they have lied to us, well, we don't believe a thing they say until We either prove it or disprove it ourselves. And that's a really, really lousy position to be in. None of us like this position. Just like I was saying, how do we know or do we trust that the 95-year-old lady at TSA was abused the way they say she was? Is that an incendiary story? I don't know. And that's why we just challenge everything. And Ed Chiarini has put his life on the line, in my estimation, with what he's doing here. When you go to Wellaware1, you're going to see why. Now, we're waiting to get a hold of Dr. Cass Ingram, hoping to get a hold of Dr. Cass Ingram. And if we can't, we're going to go back and have Ed come back on the show and talk more, because I know I get so many emails from you. You hang on his every word. You want to hear more from him. You may not agree with it, but it is intriguing. And it is challenging because it makes us think. He helps us understand how to look at something. Now, I have to agree with him on that helicopter crash picture. Did you notice the rotor was still on the aircraft? That doesn't make any sense. He says it looks like, I believe I'm quoting him correctly, and forgive me if I'm not, but like a toy helicopter that has been made to look like a picture. Well, I don't know, but it didn't seem to pass the smell test when that event happened. I was very surprised that there was no more in the way of documentation or information, just simply that a helicopter crashed in the area. Now, moving on, wait a minute, what about all the people on board? Did they live? Did they die? And then they said, well, they're fine. Did it crash in the water? Did it crash on board? Did it crash in the equipment? What happened? Was it the unexplained, unidentified item that crashed into the water berm? I don't know. So it's really, really bizarre, ladies and gentlemen, really bizarre. Tell you what, let's go ahead and have Ed Chiarini come back on, because what I want to do at this point, Ed, if you'd call back in, I would appreciate it. If you can connect up again, I would appreciate it, because what I want to do is go back and open up the issue of where do we go from here. If you knew this information, if you were Ed Chiarini and you had this information, what would you do? Now, this comes to, putting thinking caps on and really being kind of introspective as to, seriously, what would you do if you had this information? You come across a major event that at least you can find one area that is fraudulent. All it takes is one, because there is no way to explain some of these that we've talked about that are definites in my estimation. So all it takes is one. Where do we go from here? Now, he's certainly got the capability and the expertise in putting this online and doing a study of this information, but where do we go from here? Do we go to the Attorney General's office? Do we go to an attorney? Do we get a private investigator? Where do we go from here? So we want to hear your ideas. And I don't mean, go to the newspaper, because that's not the answer. We know that. I mean, really think through this idea of where do we go from here. So hopefully Ed can join us. Hopefully he didn't go back to sleep or go to sleep or whatever. But I'd like to have Ed join us again at the Power Hour so we can continue this discussion. I mean, we can continue the discussion of where do we go from here without him, but I'd like for him to be on the air. There's so much other news that we could be covering, and I wish that we had, anyway, I wish we had no other news. I wish we had only good news, but unfortunately things are not that way right now. By the way, the water in Yankton, South Dakota, they're increasing it up to from 150,000 cubic feet per second to the release of 160,000 cubic feet per second. And I'll tell you what, I'm getting sick of seeing orange and blue ties. I mean, if you have watched the president lately, his whole entourage has light blue ties on. I mean, it's like blue ties are the new brown shirts or something. I don't know. And remember, the dams that we are watching on the Fort Calhoun event, Fort Peck, Garrison, Oahe Dam, Fort Randall, Big Bend, and Gavins. Those are the ones that we are all watching for increased flood because the water coming down starting at Fort Peck up in Wyoming, or Montana, excuse me, starting at Fort Peck, moving down to Garrison, Oahe, Fort Randall, Big Bend, and Gavin's Point. That's where we're going to be seeing the waters that will be eventually going to Fort Calhoun and to Cooper. So please keep your eye on those, and we'll try to keep you abreast of what's happening. And as I said earlier, we had the Jefferson City flood level. It went to flood stage at 9 p.m. yesterday morning. So if anybody, John, do we have Ed yet? I think he had to go back to his location where he was at, and he may we may have missed him at this point. He may be en route right now. So, Ed, if you we'll keep doing this shout out to Ed to call back. And remember, Thursday he's going to be talking about his hydrogen cell invention that he gives away to people free of charge. Now, I am not knowledgeable about this subject, and he'll probably practically do the whole show by himself on that subject, I got to tell you. Now, in the next hour, we're going to talk to Ingrid Naiman about radiation protection, cancer salves, and then we're going to have a doctor join us that is very familiar with black salve. And we will talk to him also, hopefully, in this next hour. Just to let you know, Blagojevich has been stunned at his 17-count conviction. Looks like he's going to be doing some jail time. This story is a distraction right now, along with the Gabby Giffords, as she's going to be going out in public in Houston now. Now, remember, I don't know, this whole story is so screwy, but, you know, she went back home to live in Arizona, and now she's back in Houston. And boy, she travels around for a woman that's getting over 6 months ago having had a through-and-through wound. I was really wanting to ask Cass Ingram about that, too. But that's probably not something he's going to want to talk about on the air. So let's open up the phone lines now for what would you do if you were Ed Chiarini. And if you've looked at these pictures posted at Wellaware1.com/TPH/exclusive.htm. If you have seen these pictures and if you have a question as to what's happening here, whether it's real or Memorex, let us know. I'd like to know, where would you go with this information? And by the way, we're going to be having some new information for you. Hopefully we'll be able to deal with that tomorrow on the Oklahoma City bombing and some other events that appears they're starting to have another crack in the monolith on these issues. And I'm so glad to see that. More information that we're learning about that, and also about Katrina. So we're going to be looking at getting some new information on that. Hope you would all go to TalkStreamLive.com and get us up to number 2, if you would, please. I'd appreciate it, so that we can get people to listen to something outside of the ridiculousness that exists today. Let's open up the phone lines, 800-259-9231, 800-259-9231. If you have some personal experience with what's going on at Fort Calhoun, at Cooper plant, or at the Los Alamos plant, or Los Alamos facility, I'd like to hear from you. 800-259-9231. Let's give some of the new callers a chance to call in also. And those of you who have seen the pictures at Wellaware1.com. Let's go to Dave in Arkansas. Dave, you're on the air. Go ahead, please, Dave.
Oh, yes. I was just thinking maybe we could get a county grand jury to investigate this somehow. I don't know all the procedures, but we need our legal experts to step up to the plate and go after these people somehow.
Good point. Good point. We got to get some legal, some investigative, some journalistic support. Yes, we certainly do. Thank you. And a county grand jury would be an awesome thing. Absolutely. But I think that's maybe a little bit ahead of us right now. But thank you very much, Doug in Iowa. We got to make, and I talked to George Freund about this, or emailed him about it, and he says we got to make a definite. Well, maybe George is out there and he could call in, But, you know, you got to use DNA for this kind of stuff, unfortunately, and that's pretty expensive. Let's go to Doug in Iowa. Doug, you're on the air. Go ahead, please. What are you thinking about?
The golden ticket.
Okay,
offering these people an underground ticket to the facility, or the tickets to the underground facility. They're staging deaths all over the world on people now.
Okay, be a little bit more clear about what you're saying.
Okay, let's say that they are using the staged event to help pass laws against guns, against helping implement regulations against this. But the people that come up dead, if the judge really isn't dead, maybe he got his ticket to the underground facility. Rockefeller down in Australia that disappeared. There's people all over the world that seem to be disappearing.
Well, and dying, yeah. A lot of them are dying, but, I mean, do we know that they're disappearing or dying? I don't know. But there's a lot of questions. All right. Well, let me move on because I got a lot of callers here. And thank you very much for the phone call, Doug in Iowa. Now we're going to go after this break to Maureen in Virginia, 800-259-9231. If you have a comment about all this, where do we go from here? Stay tuned. We'll be right back. Welcome back to the Power Hour. Thank you for joining us. Thank you for caring and questioning, ladies and gentlemen. That is so important. We are taking your calls right now, but I've got Ed Chiarini back on the line. We may get Dr. Cass a little bit later, and even if we can get him for a little while, it'll be important. But I thank you very much, Ed, for coming back on board with us, because we got a lot of people with a lot of questions there.
Oh, great. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Let's go to Maureen in Virginia. Maureen in Virginia, you're on the air. Go ahead, please, with Ed Chiarini.
Hey, Ed, I want to tell you something. When we have problems, you can do it too. Basically, Hebrews chapter 2, are they not all ministering spirits sent forth to minister to the heirs of salvation? You, Ed, are doing Yahweh's work. You do not have to be afraid of anything or anyone. I know from experience God can get rid of those that try to attack you or hurt you before they can touch you. And I plead the blood of Yeshua over you right now, and I speak forth no weapon formed against you will prosper. You are safe. You are blessed. And so is Joyce, and I love both of you. Goodbye.
Oh, thank you, Maureen. Thank you so much for the phone call. Let me also say that we received an email from somebody, or a phone call out at the Power Hour, saying that Ed is the most important person in the United States right now because he's bridging that gap and he's starting to crack it so that we can understand it. And I kind of think that that's a very nice compliment to say.
Wow, I mean, that's amazing. Yeah, thank you.
Okay, wow. And by the way, mention those candies I sent you.
Those candies are great. I need to get a couple more bags of those because I went through them in about 2 days.
Oh my gosh. We don't want you hyped up on sugar, but they're organic fruit candies, and they are incredible, aren't they?
I'll vouch for them. Yeah, definitely. Definitely.
Yeah, you kept emailing me. I can't stop. All right, let's go to Timothy in Tennessee. Yeah, you'll get some. Timothy in Tennessee, but they're available at the Power Hour. They are organic fruit candies, and they are incredible. All right, Timothy, you're on the air. Go ahead, please, with Ed Chiarini.
Thank you. Good morning, folks. Mr. Chiarini, hi. Thank you. I just want to say one thing. When you're telling us what you're telling us, please define specifically what you're telling us. And if you're afraid to say this is a conspiracy, just lead that statement with your opinion. Say, this is, in my opinion, this is a conspiracy. Because sometimes I don't know exactly what you're saying. And like the thing with the children this morning, what was that? I mean, what's the understanding? Are the children with CPS, Child Protective Services? What was the meaning and the understanding of what you were saying about the kids?
Okay.
No, what I was saying about the kids is she's never mentioned the fact that she has any stepchildren, and the fact that when we do see that she does, the photograph that we saw on TV, it was a young picture of the child. Now, that child is actually older because we believe that it's her aide that works in the office with her, and that right there, that aide was there during the time of the shooting. So there's things that need to be told to us that aren't, and it's very strange that if your stepmother got shot in front of you and you're not saying anything and you go back to work the next day, it's definitely something that's going on. So the only thing that I was trying to say with that is there's lies that they need to tell us. They need to come clean with this because it's mounting on top of each other and just getting larger and larger of a big snowball, and they just need to come clean with it right now.
All right. Do you have a more specific question, Timothy, you'd like to ask him?
Not here specifically, but there's a great book out about why the weather in the United States of America is so bad. It's called As You Have Done to Israel, and it's about the incredible weather here in the United States. And the weather in the United States and everything that's happening to us is because Obama is trying to separate Israel from the Jews. He's trying to separate.
I'd like to believe that it's by God's hand. I really would. It would make me even feel better. Thank you very much, Timothy, for the phone call. Sherry in Missouri again. Sherry, you're on the air. Go ahead, please. Sherry in Kansas this time. I'm sorry, Sherry in Kansas.
Good morning.
Morning.
My thought was about the FCC and complaining people for the local station there in Tucson, complaining and trying to get their license removed.
Well, here's the thing. Here's the thing about that. So the research that I've done on the FCC, and I've had some experience in the past with being a partner in a CLEC. If it's a broadcast over the air where it's a free TV, they have much more strict rules on them for when it comes to if they intentionally lie. But if it's a cable network like, say, Fox News, they can say whatever they want. There's free reign. They can tell you a lie, and it doesn't cost a thing because you're paying a subscription for that. So there definitely needs to be some type of legislation passed that stops these people from causing the rhetoric. And I don't want to sound like Dutnick with the hate speeches and things like that. But it's really they need to do their job, and that's what the media was invented for, was to be their watchdog for the people, and they're not doing that. They're stabbing us right in the back.
Thank you very much, Sherry, for the phone call, and we're going to take a final call with Lori in Montana. And then we're going to go to Dr. Cass Ingram after the break. Lori in I'll tell you what. I'll take Lori after this break. We'll come back with Ed Chiarini, and then we will move to Dr. Cass Ingram. Stay tuned to the Power Hour. It's all about the Gifford shooting, ladies and gentlemen. It's all about deception in the news and around the world. Stay tuned. We'll be back. 3-minute break. Joyce Riley here. Welcome back to Power Hour. Oh, what a morning. What a morning. My goodness, we've had a lot of guests today. We are talking with Ed Chiarini right now, and we're going to take a final phone call for him. It's the Gifford event, ladies and gentlemen. If you have not seen the website, go to Wellaware, WELLAWARE, the1.com. That's where he exposes what he believes to be some of the fraud that was in the event, the Gabby Giffords event that occurred in Tucson. He has done an incredible amount of work. This is his background, is working in computers and CGI, or now what do you call CGI? What does CGI consist of, Ed?
Basically computer generated image, but basically I'm more of a forensic and Photoshop type of person instead of creating graphics from computers.
Okay, and I just want to thank you for being on the program this morning. Let me remind you, I quickly got to say this because we need the sales at the Power Hour because we're going to be closed on Friday, maybe. We're not sure yet. Depends on how the sales go. And, of course, the 4th of July coming up. But I wanted to tell you that we have some closeout specials still at the Power Hour. You have to ask about those. And then the Resilient Gardener is still on sale. Ripple Effect or 9/11 in Plain Sight, $5 each. $5 each. Think about it. When you buy both of them, you get a music CD for free. And then we've got North American Herb and Spice on special, and Purium, along with the Cancer Salve book. Now, the Cancer Salve book rarely goes on sale, so it's a book with color plates by Ingrid Neiman on how to use the Black Cancer Salve. Now, we can't tell you how to get the Black Cancer Salve, but you can get the book. And I would say don't ever use black salve unless you have read the book. And even then, be careful what you're doing, because I did it, and I know, believe me. Let's go to Lori in Montana, final caller for Ed Chiarini. Ed, Lori, you're on the air with Ed. Go ahead, please.
Hi, Joyce. You had asked where he should go with all of this information.
Uh-huh.
And I think that one of the things that's important to remember is that no matter who you go to as far as in a government agency or whatever, they may not necessarily respond to it like you and I would when we hear the truth. Because they don't dwell in the truth. They dwell in deception and darkness.
That's right.
And I believe that when he takes a compelling and a concise manner of his information to the people themselves, and just as they did for the 9/11 issue.
You're right about that, but you know what? The other talk shows are scared to death of this information. I thank you very much for the phone call, Lori. You're right. We need to take it to the people. But Ed, they're afraid to put you on, aren't they?
They are, and, I understand exactly what you're saying. So my main goal is to get this message out to the people. If it were to go to the legal aspect of it, that would be great. I would love to take it to court and hold these people accountable. But in the meantime, my main priority is to get the information to the people and then let them be able to make an honest decision for themselves without being confused and just deceived by the media.
And I want to thank you for being on this additional time today. We look forward to having you back on Thursday morning. Thank you so much, Ed Chiarini, for joining us today.
Thank you, Joyce.
Thank you.